I'm going to go over essential equipment, types of beehives, how to get bees, identifying the contents in cells, supplementing the bees' nutrition, and lastly, mites. I know that was a lot to take in. All timestamps will be down in the description below. And while you're down there, make sure to smash that like button so more people will see the video. Beekeepers widely vary in the amount of protection they use. When I started beekeeping, I thought wearing protection was for wimps. Likewise, I chose to wear a little protection. I don't really recommend that. What I've found is that when you first start beekeeping, you're really anxious. You'll use more sudden movements and that'll aggravate your bees, which will make the whole situation a lot worse. With adequate protection, the stress of being stung is taken off your shoulders, meaning you'll be less anxious and make a lot less mistakes. That's why I recommend getting a smoker, beekeeping jacket, make sure it's vented so you don't die of heat stroke, and gloves. The next tool is a must. It's called a hive tool. Hive tools are essential as you use them for separating propolis-bound frames and pulling frames out of boxes. I have a link for one down in the video description. Assuming you haven't began sweating about the cost of all this yet, I would also suggest getting a frame grabber. Frame grabbers are really nice if you have gloves, which, if you're beginning, you probably will have gloves. There are two well-known types of beehives that I think worth mentioning. These are length drop hives, top bar hives, and lastly horizontal length drops. In this video, I'll just be talking about length drops as they are by far the most common. Length drops usually come in two widths, 8 frames or 10. If the length drop is longer than 10 frames, which is uncommon, then it's considered a horizontal length drop. Length drops also come in two heights, deep or medium. Shallow is also a thing, but they're not really used, so don't worry about it. Don't worry about the depth of your boxes though, it doesn't really matter. The only exception I have is that if you can't lift 80 pounds, I would not use deeps. A deep 8 frame box full of honey weighs about 80 pounds. Make that a 10 framer and it's 100. Boxes at the top of the beehives are called supers, and they get filled with honey because the bees typically put honey higher up in the hive and the brood down at the bottom. There are two ways to get bees, from a package and a nuke. It's spelled N-U-C, not N-U-K-E. Anyways, packages are straightforward. You got 2 or 3 pounds of bees in a box with a queen and queen cage, and all you gotta do is dump the bees in, put the queen cage in, and bam, let the bees build it up. If you want to see a more descriptive video than that, there's one in the description. A nuke is also pretty simple. It's just a mini hive with about 5 frames in it. All you gotta do is put it right next to your empty hive for a few hours to make the bees used to the location, and then you just take all the frames and move them into the empty hive. Pretty simple. There's also a video in the description. Because nukes include wax and food, they typically cost around 50 to 80 USD more. Packages costing somewhere from $120 to $150. Nukes costing somewhere between $180 and $220. I know you're wincing at the cost right now. This here is capped honey. You can tell because A, the caps are translucent, and B, in this case, it's next to nectar, the syrupy stuff right here, which is of course the precursor of honey. Usually the caps are enough to recognize it though. Another food source the bees use is bee bread, right here. Bee bread is a mixture of pollen and honey. The bees use honey as carbohydrates and bee bread for protein. Now let's look at eggs. Eggs are the hardest thing to see in the beehive because they're so tiny. But if you look closely and use the light to your advantage, you should be able to see these small ovoid things. A trick I like to use is look for nearby larvae. This is because larvae are just eggs that are a few days old, so the queen could have been laying there recently. After the brood goes through the egg and larva phase, they eventually become a pupae. Pupae look like this and they're really gross. Fortunately, the younger workers in the hive, known as nursing bees, will cap off the brood when they become pupae. This is what the caps look like. Once the pupae are done developing, they'll dig their way out of the caps, and they'll have nice pigmentation and look super cute. Drone pupae have a big bulge on them because drones are a lot fatter than the workers. When worker bees hatch, they become nursing bees. Nursing bees don't forage. Instead, they feed royal jelly and take care of brood, but eventually they'll become workers. Lastly come queen cells and cups. A queen cup looks like this. It's just an upside down cup. Queen cups are usually built by workers with no intentions of making a queen. But every time you see a queen cup, it's good to check if there's any eggs inside. If an egg is inside, that means the bees do intend to make a queen, so you should get ready to split. After several days, the bees will lengthen that queen cup, if it has an egg in it, to make a queen cell. But in my opinion, first-year beekeepers usually won't have to worry about queen cups and cells too much, because bees usually swarm after they've overwintered, but that isn't always the case. Just like how nutrition is important for your body, nutrition is also important for your bees. Likewise, it's important to know when to supplement your bees' carbs and when to supplement them protein. Unlike humans, bees don't consume fats, so we wouldn't put them on a keto diet anytime soon. Let's first start off when and how you'd supplement for carbs. The most obvious scenario is when your bees have no honey. I'll stress honey, as bee bread is primarily a source of protein and not of carbs. If that was the case, I would feed the bees some sugar syrup right away. I also recommend supplementing carbs when your bees need to build a wax, such as when you're building up a super or when you just installed a package of bees. I would not, however, feed my bees if I was trying to fill supers. While that would be a fast way to produce honey to sell, you would basically be selling people sugar syrup, which is a huge scam. One last thing to note is that you should absolutely not feed bees sugar syrup in the winter. The sugar syrup will cause moisture buildup in the hive, which will kill the bees due to the condensation. Instead, you should feed your bees fondant, and a video will be in the description for that. Now let's talk about how to supplement for protein. When you have a lot of baby bees and not much bee bread, it's usually a good idea to feed protein, because just like humans, in order to grow, bees need protein. In order to supplement, just buy some protein patties, also known as pollen patties, and slap them in the hive. There aren't many other instances in which you'd supplement for protein, though. Mites are talked about a lot in the beekeeping community. Unless you live in Australia, you have to deal with the infamous Varroa destructor parasite. Keeping your mite population is key for your colony's survival, especially in the winter. Due to all the diseases mites spread, if you have a high mite count in the winter, well, it's safe to say that a bunch of sick bees have a lower chance of getting through the winter than a bunch of healthy bees. So how do you know if you have mites? Well, I can tell you that even a well-treated hive probably has a few mites in it. Although you may want a more concrete method to find out exactly how many mites you have. And if you want a concrete method, there are three ways: alcohol shakes, sugar rolls, and sticky bottom boards. I'll link videos for all three methods in the description. So once you know if you have to worry about your mite population or not, let's talk about how you would treat for your mite population. By the way, I would only worry about my mite population if it's around 1 to 2%, but I tend to treat my hives more than the average beekeeper. Formic acid, which comes in strips called Formic Pro, is the most popular. It works as long as it's warmer than 50 degrees Fahrenheit and colder than 85 degrees Fahrenheit. It can be used to when supers are on the hive and when there are eggs, but it won't kill every last mite inside the hive. Then there's Apivar. Apivar is a much stronger mite treatment, and it kills mites with a miticide. Apivar does have its drawbacks though, as it can't be used when supers are on the hive, as the miticide will make its way in the honey, and the mites can gain resistance to the Apivar if it's used too often. Another treatment is called oxalic acid. Oxalic is also very effective, but it can't be used when eggs are in the hive, as it'll harm the eggs. It's typically used on packages, queenless hives, or hives with a virgin queen. The last treatment method is chemical-free. It's called Varroa Sensitive Hygiene, aka VSH. The secret of VSH all lies in the genetics of the bees. VSH bees detect brood cells that are infested with Varroa. Then they will take the pupae out, causing the Varroa mites attached to the pupae to die along with the pupae, which is kind of dark because they cannibalize the pupae. While VSH slows down mite growth, it's still important to note that VSH bees are not immune to mites, just resistant. Hey guys, sorry the editing on this video is pretty bad and the video itself is pretty dull. I thought it'd be a good idea at the time, but then I got too far in the project and I couldn't make a more fun video. So this is the best I have this week, but there should be some pretty interesting content coming out soon. And make sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, so that way we can hit 200 subscribers and make a special play button.